Okay, today I'm going to show you how to test a Philips 3015A or 3015B module. You see we have three different test sequences here. One of them is calibration only, it just does the cal steps. Simple is basically the full manufacturer's recommended routine, only it uses our quicker leak testing method, and it doesn't include the span gas check with 10% CO2, it just does the calibration with 5% CO2. And then there's the full, which is the full manufacturer's recommended routine. It uses their slower leak down method for testing for leaks, and it includes a span gas check at the end of the test with 10% gas. So we'll do the simplified because it's most common used out there. Hit load and start. First screen tells us what calibration gas we need, and this one only requires the 5% CO2, 21% oxygen. We're going to enter the asset ID of the device under test and operator initials. This disclaimer tells us what service manual this was taken from, and the I agree is that it's our responsibility, or the user's responsibility, to make sure that this is the right sequence for the device they're testing. This just reiterates which modules can be tested with this, in this case 3015A, 3015B, or the standalone M3015A monitor. They all use the same sequence. So this is the first step in the sequence. It explains to us that this functional test is to be done once a year, every 4,000 hours, or whenever we replace parts. So the first thing we're going to do is check the barometer inside the extension module. So we go into service mode. If you don't know exactly how to do that, touch info, and this gives you the navigation for an MP30 monitor. So we start by touching main setup, and then scroll all the way to the bottom for operating modes, and we select service, and we've got to enter, and you see over here on the smart tank we give the default 1345 passcode. Now we're in the service menu. Now we go back to main setup and select measurements. Now we'll scroll down to CO2, and here we can see the barometric pressure is read right there, 686. It also reads it right here in this scrolling message at the bottom. So we hit done there. I'm going to move to the next screen. So here 686.4 is the barometer, is the reading from the barometer inside the smart tank, and the plus or minus 12 is the pass criteria for this device. So you can see that this device is actually reading almost exactly perfect barometric pressure. So that's a passing result. Next test, we're going to connect the sample line up to port A on the smart tank and the exhaust of the extension module to port B on the smart tank. And then we just press start. The smart tank now is measuring the sample flow rate, and it's also going to switch an internal valve which allows it to directly measure any leaks inside the extension module that we're testing. So the flow was 48.3. The nominal setting for this device is 50, so it's pretty close and it's well within the pass criteria. It passed, there was no leak, or the leak was less than the limit of detection. Before we do the CO2 calibration, we want to make sure the extension module has been on for 20 minutes at least. This module has been, so I can move on. This tells us to go into Cal CO2. Select Cal CO2 on the monitor, and then we select 5%, and then we touch Cal on to deliver calibration gas, and we touch confirm on the monitor. If we look over here, we can see that it will tell us that its CO2 calibration is in progress. You can see the smart tank is counting down. This is so you don't forget that it's on and run a calibration gas bottle empty. If the device you're testing needs more time, you can just touch it and it resets the timer without disrupting the gas flow that's being fed to the monitor. So we watch this message here, and it just beeps, so it means it's probably ready for us to turn cal gas. He says remove gas, so we can turn it off over here. And now we wait for the monitor to finish its calculations, and over here it'll stop saying remove gas and start telling us that it was calibrated on today's date. That beep tells us that it's almost done, I believe. There it is, calibration, CO2 calibration done. So we can hit next. And now we're going to feed calibration gas again and verify that the monitor up here reads what it should for this calibration gas and today's barometric pressure. So this 34.3 is calculated by the smart tank based on today's barometric pressure and the calibration gas that's in it. So we should expect this to read 34, close to 34.3, plus or minus 2.6. We also want to look at this noise value and make sure that's less than 3 millimeters of mercury. So we can see that it's reading very close to expected value. We can turn cal gas on and move on. That's the end of this test. When we hit next, it creates a test report. You can scroll down to look at the details of the report. When you hit done, it exits back to the main screen. You can go pull that report up by hitting last report, or you can click on all reports. You can see all the reports that are saved in the system.